Hi, you're listening to mAIndset, spelled with AI, a bi-weekly tech podcast that is shaping what you know and think about AI. My name is David. I'm a tech journalist and entrepreneur. And here with me, as always, is Philip, AI executive. Hi, Philip.
Hi, David. How are you doing today?
Yeah, we're back to the studio. So we have a big topic, which is we've just had the half-year earnings season after us. All the big tech companies have already reported, so we have the numbers. We've seen the growth, the decrease, and we thought it's a good time to look back.
Yes.
On our predictions that it's more or less your predictions, to be honest. I did not do a lot of predicting there. So let's look at the big players, the predictions, what went good, what went wrong. And also let's finish up with what we both think are the top and the highs and the lows of the AI industry.
Cool. Well, before going to predictions, let me ask you a question. So if you have to name a theme, one topic, which would represent well the first half year of 2025 in AI, what would it be for you?
For me, okay, that's a good question. For me, it was two things, okay? Mm-hmm. So for me, it's the ubiquity of chatbots. I see them now everywhere. Mm-hmm. I wasn't in the beginning of the year. I mean, they were ubiquitous enough, right? That you might think this is not going to turn you around.
Think of more.
Yeah, couldn't. And it's just everywhere, right? Also we see the adoption data just exploding. We see all the big numbers reported from the AI companies. But the one thing that I look at is when I travel in a bus or a tram and I like to look at people's screens. It's just a habit from my old job as a product manager, trying to find out
how wondering it was the CIA job.
No, not yet at least. So in many years ago, it was games. Then it was social media. Nowadays, it's mainly ChatGPT that I see. It is. It absolutely is.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a big wow. So that's one thing. And the second thing, for me, because I'm we're being selfish now, because you'll go next. The next thing would be media generation. Okay, so the progress in image generation, the progress in video generation, that was a big wow for me. I mean, you predicted it. It was kind of expected, but still, there are things that you expect. And when they happen, you still kind of go wow, it really works so well. So for you, what was it?
Yes, for me, I would share one with you, and that's definitely the content generation. I would probably leave a little bit image aside because in images, for me, not that much has happened really, to be honest. Probably the only interesting piece in images was this attempt on generating the images not as stable diffusion, but as auto-regression, which I think OpenAI was the first one who kind of pushed that a little bit stronger than everybody else. So that's an interesting move in images. But besides that, I think images were on a relatively, let's say, foreseeable pathway for me. But video was wow. I mean, the jump in the video, both Veo 3, Clink 2.0 and 2.1, I mean, they are really making big difference. The thing which I have on top of it, which was a pleasant surprise for me, is coding. And I don't mean vibe coding, because vibe coding was kind of happening already on the edge of previous year and this year. So it was not necessarily a new thing for the first half of 2025, but the way this was coming to, and also the biggest acquisition discussions and turmoil was about teams and products which have been doing coding. And I was also pleasantly surprised, just a small comment, that Claude or Anthropic managed to sustain the strong number one position, given how attractive and desirable this area is. So these were two highlights for me. But let me make a quiz. So let me test a little bit of your memory. So we discussed in our very first episode of this year what the predictions for 2025 were. And just to remind audience, this was things which you are not ready for in AI in 2025. So How much of those topics do you recall?
Very few.
Very few.
Very,
Okay, so
very
let's
few.
start with a few that you do. I can help you with the fill up with the other ones.
So the one thing that you, I believe, mentioned was the media generation, right? Like you mentioned that in your predictions, but the only thing that you were saying at the point was it will happen in the second half of the year, not in the first half. So that happened. That happened earlier. We also talked about. You predicted, I think, the higher tiers, right? Like it will cost more because we will have better models, bigger models, more like, pricey models that will do more stuff. There was also some agentic predictions that, to be honest, like I still feel like it's that did not deliver yet. I wouldn't say like, oh, that's here. Like we have like agentic. I don't think so.
Cool. So let's take these three topics which you remember first, and then we're going to cover for the other ones which slipped off your mind. So first one, the media generation. So we agreed, both of us, when we were spontaneously asked what was your the topic or main topic of the first half, we said media. So I think it's coming. It's obviously there. It's coming very quickly. It's also to the point that I don't know what the next step is, to be honest. Like it's hard to imagine. Like, well, I mean, there is still a way of like a 3D
world building,
completely there out of a prompt. And one thing which is not very, very visible for the people, but if you do work with these tools, still the stability of the prompt is somewhere around 10 to 15 seconds. If you try to go much further, doesn't work, diverges. But this is because of a stable diffusion approach, because it like deteriorates or like diverges from the prompt over the time. So what is being done either by the software itself or us as like building the solutions with it is you simply take the end frame and make it a start frame of another sequence, right? But now still, if you think about it, if you'd have to do a movie of 2 hours and you would have to do like a 10-second sequences and like using it for like a reframing would be still a lot of work.
Have you seen the Wall Street Journal video? Like, so Wall Street Journal, a couple months back, not like that far, like 1 or 2 months ago, they tried to do this, right? Like there was this big jump in I think when VO3 was announced, and they said, oh, okay, well, let's do like a short film because now we can, right? Like easily. And basically it was like a video review of how this can happen. And the conclusion was like, it's still very hard.
It is.
It's still very hard. And the like on the long form, the output is still nowhere near where you would want it to be, right?
So I would conclude this area with it's happening the way that we discussed it and predicted. The images are almost there. I can't think of too many other things that needs to be more perfect or like more elaborate. Even the fingers, the like labels, everything is kind of getting right out of the prompt. And the video part, the long form is not there. So I don't dare to kind of update the prediction if until the end of this year we're going to get a long form. But I can't completely rule it out because maybe you remember when we discussed it, I told you that I met somebody who is like earning his bread, like his main business is doing the special effects. And he said that he believed that until end of 2025, it will be realistic to have like a long form movies, even like you're going to pick your own actor, which is going to play the role. So you like Denzel Washington, you can have you want to have Brad Pitt, you can have a Brad Pitt instead of him. So that would have to be like still a step up. So let's see if that brings me there.
Just a moment. Do you think it will happen gradually, or there will be a new model that can like suddenly do the long form?
Yeah, I think it will be difficult to tell one from another because in eyes of a consumer, this is going to come gradually, but it's going to come with the new models introduced. I don't think so that, put it this way, I think we need a step change in the models for this to happen, not that we learn to use the existing models better to make the job. So that's the way forward. The only possible hope there is that maybe you can combine agentic and these 10-second sequences to automate the process of generating. But still, Like it's going to be a little bit distorted, and somebody from the like human will have to look at it. So I don't believe that we are that close, but that's the next mission. That's the next step up change when the video generators will be able to generate a long form as well.
Okay, so what's your take on the agentic stuff?
Yes, agentic stuff. So if I remember correctly, what we discussed and what I predicted is that the way that the agentic will go, that at the end of this year, we will have a first roles being offered on the market as a job market. Like you can buy a salesperson, you can buy a call center agent. And I think we are almost there, to be honest. I do see this happening. It's probably not productized in a way that you could go to LinkedIn and like click, I want to have this, but we are not too far away from that. So I am still positive that this still might happen this year. What is interesting, which I didn't expect in agentic, is how much vibe coding kind of is trying to smuggle itself into agentic as well. Because many of the tools like N8N or kind of Crew AI or whatever you're being using is in a situation where people are encouraged by the development and by the other players in agent AI arena to try to build their own agents, a set of agents, even like a swarm of the agents and combining the agents. And interestingly, lately, I don't know if you have seen that, but also Claude is jumping on it. They are trying to like build a way for them to build the actual agents in the chatbot directly. So this is a bit of a surprise to me. I did not expect this twist to appear, but I would say agentic, in my perception, is on track with the expectations, maybe an inch further to what I expected it to be by this time.
Okay. What's next? The price of the models?
Yes, so the price of the models, this is an interesting one, because originally I like looked back and our prediction was that the free tier was going to be squeezed out and that there will be new tiers introduced. We didn't speak specifically about if this is going to be 200, 2000 or whatever. But one thing which is getting absolutely evident, and that is that the tokens are too expensive. And as you have no limitation for like computer to run 24/7, you can run Scraper 24/7. You can also run AI agent 24/7. And as you've heard, probably Claude was having these issues that they caught really people like using it 24/7. So that's a situation which is unbearable from the costs, right? Even I think they have now a tool where you can actually assess based on tokens how much you would actually spend if you were doing on a token. A lot of people who do these comparisons for them publish that they spend probably like 200 worth of credits per day. We're paying like a program which is like $20 a month, right? So it only is a question how long the AI companies are ready to subsidize this. That's the main question for me, because they are obviously subsidizing it to like get the adoption. I understand why OpenAI is doing. I kind of don't understand why the other players are doing it, or maybe they're just forced by competition. But
in Gemini, you understand that, right?
Not really, to be honest.
Really?
No, because if you think about it, the use case for Gemini is not I want to have a lot of free users. The use case for Gemini is I want to have a lot of corporate users, okay? Because their line of business is same by the way for Anthropic. They are more on a corporate API consumption than like people in a tram in a like morning looking at a ChatGPT on their phones, right? But OpenAI is doing that. So for them, I understand, because for them, the B2C segment is important and they are building the brand recognition and everything based on that. For the other players, not necessarily. So I don't really understand, or I would not subscribe that this is the best strategy to just keep on burning. But they're still doing it.
Okay. One other prediction came to my mind. We were talking about models that are on device.
Yes.
So how that moved in terms of you were expecting or not expecting it?
So this area has been actually decelerarized because for that you need to have a strong open source models, and this is not happening. And also the space of a smaller models is kind of now a bit dormant. So a lot of players go for, let's say, size. And I don't want to be paranoid, but if I was an AI executive for the companies building like Frontier Labs, I would not like to have a smaller models, because the key thing here is the moment that you build a smaller model, somebody can run it on his or her device. Then you're losing the charging for the GPUs. The moment that you make large enough model that nobody can run it on his or her own GPU, you have to bundle it into like a GPU seller or like provider. In that case, you can earn more. And you can also do this bundling, which is happening. Because I don't know if you've seen it, but I was referring on it on my LinkedIn. The price of a token is falling. But it's not falling because of any kind of a Moore law or something like that. It's just falling because the companies were charging it super high at the beginning. Now they are slowly being forced by competition to take it down. But if there was not for these open source models, we would be paying much more for the token. So that's the way to answer your question about on device. I think it's not accelerating, and it's not accelerating because it's not in the interest of the big players for this to happen.
I remember a month ago, OpenAI announced that they will announce an open weight model. It's been 1 month and there's still like nothing.
Yes, but I don't know if you've seen the news. I think it was last week. They like accidentally some models which were named like open source, which were assumed or alluded to originate from OpenAI happened there. But again, like these kind of things don't happen on an accidental basis. So I think it was just a teaser from them, a reminder. Yes, we still are kind of on the topic. We didn't deliver, but they are kind of round the corner, and you can. But I would be surprised if they launch them along with ChatGPT 5, which is imminent anyway. I would assume that they want to first like grab the ChatGPT 5, get everybody kind of use and pay for using ChatGPT 5, and then maybe like give them a small candy of an open source model. So that's the way that I remember. But I mean, speaking of GPUs, one of the topics which did not come to your short list, but we also discussed, was NVIDIA chips, if you remember.
Yep.
Now, that came through pretty fast because they announced the new chipset already in January. And there was like high demand for that. It was completely sold out. The new GPUs that they have, the H200s and similar things, are kind of sold out anyway. But there was one interesting more, which we didn't have in prediction, and that was the H20. So the model for the China, because then the politicians got involved, and there was a trade limitation for the chips. And now they were developing a chip, which is a bit controversial topic. I don't know if you follow the discussion, but basically the tug of war is between shall we do it, shall we not do it? Because the H20 is optimized for inference. So it's not helping you to develop the models. And this is the strategy, which is relatively smart from NVIDIA, I think, because what they try to do is they try to build a chip which is, you can sell it, and you kind of officially cannot say that you're helping the China or the other adversary companies to develop the new models, right? So it's a smart way. Like, you keep your revenue coming because you still sell the chips. But with the innovation coming from a DeepSeek and other things, I think it's actually a false narrative. Yep. So I think they can use it also for training, or let's say they can offload whatever they were now using for inference for this H20 and use it for the training. So it's not really, it's just a smart way for NVIDIA to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, to them, it's, I guess, like they don't care, right? Well, they care as much as they can like sell them to China.
Exactly.
Okay. And now I'm lost. So now you need to come in with the predictions and tell me like.
Yes. So one of the topic which was also very favorite for you, because you said it would be probably most touching your life, was autonomous vehicles. So now you tell me, what do you believe is the progress in autonomous vehicles in H1, the way that you are following the news?
So the expansion of autonomous vehicles continues, but at the same pace. So it did not accelerate. So this is kind of, I'm not sure if it's stuck in a regulatory limbo, or whether they hit a point where, you know how you said in the past that, to get to 90%, it's fairly fast, but to go from 90 to 91 to 92 to 93, like those like small steps last miles take much more longer. So I think we're there, and it's taking more than anyone thought. I read a really long form article in the New York Times this year where they looked back on the promises, right? Like, and the promises were all the way, I think, even though like the predictions were like, oh, 2020, we will have like autonomous vehicles in most big cities, right? And then like we're still like 5 years later, still very, very far.
Yeah, I want to be more harsh on myself. I think this is not happening the way that I predicted it so far. Let's see if the second half helps me to get out of this trouble. But the way for here is that I think it's also like bifurcation of a focus, because ultimately the talent and also the GPUs need to be invested somewhere, right? And now, like, think about who was pushing the topic most. It was Tesla, right? Now, Tesla has all kind of other things ever since Musk started to combine X, AI, and Tesla and X itself, right? So it's building a little bit of the conglomerate, and I think they have like a different priorities. I mean, I think for them to release Grok 4 was much more important than to actually have another step in autonomous vehicles, and you have to face it. So ultimately, I think it's even decelerating. So I think it's even slowing down. So this is why I want to be harsh on myself that this prediction is not coming true, because the companies are kind of looking elsewhere. And this is not a topic which gets enough love from the players that should be pushing it for. Even Google, like, yeah, Waymo, right? Like it has another cities when it started, but it's not a big news. And you don't like, and even like in this reporting season, they have not mentioned it once. So it's obviously not a strong priority on their radar.
What's next?
All right. So besides that, then we have single man marketing agencies. So
okay.
If you follow the topic, where would you say we have moved ever since start of a year in
marketing agencies? I know there has been a buzz. People were predicting that we will have not just marketing agencies, but whole companies that are built by one person, and they're like $1 billion company.
Single person billionaires, yeah.
Yeah, single person billionaires. And so far I haven't heard of like a single one. So I guess there's a gap. I don't know where the gap is. So like something is missing. Like obviously, because I can see like you have the agentic stuff, you have like better models, like everything is developing, everything is like content generation is like, you know, video, images, everything is like kind of there. But at the same time, we don't see someone jumping in and saying, oh, I built like a huge business. And I'm not sure if this is connected to what you just said, that it actually costs a lot to build, to run these kind of things, right? Like the tokens are, you know, you need more tokens, even though they're like getting cheaper, but you need more of them to build something bigger. So in the end, to be like a single person billionaire from building AI stuff, I suppose you have to start with millions probably.
Yes. So my honest read on this topic is that it's a little bit underreported. So I see the trends bubbling there. I have a touch with a community of marketing agencies, which are, I think they are getting more and more progressive. When I compare, I like talk to them, I think it was October or November last year, where they were. And when I talk to them now it is obvious they have to have it. There were still some hesitant, shall I do it, shall I not do it, for what use cases? Now it is becoming somewhat AI first, at least like not in terms of like AI ever losing, but when I do something, I try AI first before I jump on anything else. I also have seen and heard agencies kind of recording meetings with the clients to have a transcripts, to have a database of the information to use it. And I think it goes a little bit in hand with agentic, because if agentic like accelerates even stronger, then these are the first use cases. Like coding and marketing services are like two immediate use cases where agentic is going to get big, because once you train or program the agents to generate the content, then you have like a lot of multiplier. It can do a lot of things. So I do believe that this is going to be still the case. It's not much of a heard of, but I have seen already first companies which are getting like to a millions of revenue, not profit yet, revenue. That's also important for people doing business. But I do see like millions. I'm quite sure by the end of the year, we're going to get to tens or maybe like a small 100 millions. Do we going to get to the billion? I would probably vote a little bit against it for the way this goes now.
I have one side question to this. So we heard a lot about AI layoffs, right? Like layoffs because of AI. Now, there are two kind of like ways people are looking at it, right? Like one is that, oh yeah, this is because AI is accelerating, more things can be done with AI. And the second thing is, no, the companies just won't need it to because of the economic turmoil globally. They need it to let people go. And that's why, and they just labeled it, oh, let's just use AI as a label for this. Where do you stand on this topic? And I think it's like not as straightforward as it might seem.
Yeah, it's a complicated one because I do see cases both of the companies where this is purely an excuse. So they had other issues before AI and now they kind of were finally forced to act on them and they use AI just as a fig leaf to cover whatever was there before. But I also have seen cases where this was literally based on the AI taking over the tasks. So I would say it's a little bit of a mixed bag. So far, I guess my observation is the most vocal ones are the ones which use AI as an excuse. And the ones which are really doing it are not being vocal about it because honestly, it's not very good PR topic either. Like, why would you boast about I could lay off 1,000 people based on AI, right? So I don't think so. If you really do it, you want to kind of be famous for it. Of course, the public listed companies have a bit more complicated situation where they have to report it one way or another. So then you would be stupid not to mention it if you really did. Like if you laid off 10,000 people, you would be stupid not to mention that on your earnings call, right? So I think it's a bit of a mixed bag, but I do see more and more tendency toward this becoming reality. And in one of, like in our other sister podcast, when we discussed this, I think I made a comment that I believe that next year is going to be crucial for this because many shareholders and like company boards now see it as technically possible or technically viable to try. And I think they will push a lot of managements for next year to try, to like push for it, to get, they will make the cost targets harder. They would kind of force the companies to go down the pathway. So I expect 2026 might be much more this topic of the year than it's for 2025.
Okay, back to our list.
Yes, back to our list. So the other thing which we mentioned, and it's interesting that it didn't stick in your head, is because it was one of the heavy debated topic was the strong leaders and the AI misuse. So shall Mr. Trump, Putin, or similar leaders have a say? Now, on this one, I think it was almost silent for a lot of time, but I don't know if you heard that 2 weeks back. There was this initiative where Trump said that he would appreciate that the models being used for like a state contracts with the government are somehow kind of vetted for being correct ones. Have you heard that news?
Yeah. I heard it. And I heard this good take, right? So I was listening to a podcast called Powers That Be from PAC, and their new colleague, like AI journalist, said this thing that it is interesting that US is in this like AI war, like who's going to be the leader with China, and to get ahead, they're using the very opposite notion that exists in China, right? Like, so China is heavily regulated, as you said so many times, right? Like they're vetting the models for safety, but not only for safety, for censorship,
Yeah.
but also for like climate, right? Like how cost effective they are
Yeah.
and how much they're producing. And on the other hand, the answer from US is we need to take away all the guardrails, right? Like even like the recent speech by Trump was in this sense, right? Like we need to go ahead, we need to have as like almost no guardrails, right? Guardrails and just like no regulation and just like steam ahead, right? Like we need to be the first ones. It's really like mind blowing that to push ahead, like you're using these two opposite notions.
Yes, but this notion, which is like, let it go, don't regulate it, no guardrails. Even Trump has come to limit of it because he said like, oh, by the way, this wokeness should be removed from the models, right? And so they are trying to push their own political agenda into it, which I find a bit dangerous because I think that the big companies still need a business from the government. So if government puts like, hey, this is the standards that you need to meet, otherwise you're not going to get business from us, of course the companies will have like no other way to do it. Then I think what they might do is that they might just create a version for them, which is another thing which Trump does not realize. Like they can make a version for government which is meeting the standards, but they can't force them that there's another version out. And maybe this open source, like release an open source version of your like brothers and cousins of your models, which do not have these guardrails, would be another way around it. But I do see that this is kind of okay. So we're just telegraphically, because we're kind of running a little bit late. So the other topics that we had on the list was electricity outages.
Yeah.
So we had a Spain, but it couldn't be attributed to the AI. It was like a different reasons, but it was kind of reminding us like how. So, but as I think the way that this topic demonstrates is not necessarily in the outages, but in like the way that it builds the nuclear, the build up, the reactors and everything. And now it's evident it's like a hot topic because besides the people and the GPU limitations, now comes the electricity as well. The other thing which we had was the sovereign models. And here I would just want to say one thing. So if you remember, my prediction was, did you remember which region I named in predictions of which is going to be most likely to get the sovereign models?
No.
I said Middle East.
Middle East, yeah, Middle East.
And Middle East is really going that direction. So they offered, like one of the Saudi countries offered the model for them, their citizens, as free to have. They are trying to invest. Now they invested into Claude as well. They invested into OpenAI as well. So they are trying to go that direction very strongly, even though maybe not all the way to the sovereign models, but like government having like a strong say and like a chance to license a model is certainly on their agenda. Okay, and the last one which we had was software falling down, the SAS being replaced by vibe coding. So that's my last topic. And my question to you, where do you think we stand on this one?
So I remember our discussion very lively about this. And I have seen even like many people from my network trying something, right? Like building something. It's easy. Here it is. You can use it and everything. I haven't seen it go as far as to be reliable or scalable enough to sidestep any existing application. I would say it's like I can see a pathway there, but maybe not yet.
Cool. All right, so that's covering the topics that we mentioned. Let's just do a quick top and a flop. So what has been for you the top and a flop of 2025 AI so far?
Yeah, so I have two big tech companies. One is a top, one is a flop, and I think it's like easy to know which one is which.
I think one would be Apple, but I'm not sure on which side it will be.
Yeah. So Apple AI, Apple Intelligence is definitely like the flop of the year. I would say by far, right? Like there's like not even like a distant second. And for me, the kind of like the reboot of the year has been Google's AI and what they've been able to do with like just to like not even sidestep people, but like just get ahead and just keep pushing forward and not losing not losing revenue, not losing users, not losing interest, and kind of like just being always in the news in the, I would say, best possible sense when it comes to like who are the leaders, right? Like obviously it's still OpenAI in many regards that people say, but more and more like Google is not like missing from that group of people, group of companies.
Cool. So I thought about it more, let's say, topic-wise.
Okay.
So for me, the video progress is certainly a top of the 2025 first half in AI. I was long thinking about the flop, to be honest, because in this, everything is going so fast, it's difficult to pick a topic which is probably not accelerating. Before the discussion, I was a little bit thinking about the autonomous vehicles part, because I think it was literally de-accelerating. But topic which will be a bit more surprising to the audience is the big cloud providers development.
Tell me more.
Something. So if you think about it, when we discussed the topic for the very first time, I told you that I think that AWS is doing a smart way to go into it, because what they were trying to do is to build just a bedrock, not to push for their own models too much, but to build a bedrock as a platform where you can run other models. And they said, we're going to like cash out on the GPUs. So on the actual cloud, which is their core business. And it made perfect sense to me. And it's like, you can't lose this business. And interestingly enough, you can. So even though they were showing a lot of progress in like developing and like in selling the cloud as well, and also in recent examples, still the real winners of the GPU war are the smaller providers, more nimble players like Runpod, Cwear, or Hyperbolic, or CoreWeave. So these things,
I never heard of them.
Yes, and that's the important thing, because in the industry, most of the people know, because the reality is that they are much more faster at top the models. I think this is a reason because companies like AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud, it takes a lot of time to approve model to be safe, to be used on enterprise level. Because the moment you made it available in AWS, anybody can, right? So the reputational risk of this going terribly wrong are very high. So they are very slow to allow new models to enter to it. So when a new model comes, it takes usually a month or two before it becomes available in AWS, if at all, to be honest. These cloud providers, they said like, we just provide GPUs. You're running your stuff. So if you want to like ruin your company, like using these models, be my guest. Like here is the GPU to make it happen. So they are much faster. Also, AWS, GCP, and Azure were starting from a relatively high margin. It's a high margin business for them. And they have difficulty to run the GPUs on the same margin, because this cloud provider says, oh, I'm perfectly fine to take, 10, 15% margin. It doesn't have to be 40%. And this is pushing like in reality that I can tell you in our own company, we were testing things on our own AWS cloud GPUs or capacity, and these smaller providers, it was like 1/3 of the price.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Might have been a specific use case, but then makes you think if you can have it like for 1/3 of a price, if you really want to go with like a big cloud provider. So that's a flop for me, that this cloud providers are not winning a game, and it's the smaller GPU specific dedicated players who are growing much faster.
Okay. I guess we will have to wait for the end of the year to see. We're not grading the predictions now, because
I'm happy with the interim results. I think there's a lot of ticks in already.
Yeah, I mean, you haven't done so bad, so it's and hopefully next year I'll have my predictions as well. But this year we're going just with yours.
Cool.
Okay, Philip. So till next time. And that's all for this episode. You can be sure to follow us on in your favorite podcast app on YouTube. You can also follow Mindset Podcast on LinkedIn. Don't forget to go to the Mindset Podcast website, mindsetpodcast.com. That's spelled with AI. You can vote for the next topic, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with Philip. Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Bye.